Dave, we do have a movie left on our docket, and boy, what a movie it is! We got our guy. I'm gonna call him our guy because I feel like we have been diamond hands on the Andrew Garfield stock.
Oh hell yeah!
You know, yeah, I think Andrew Garfield.
I would buy the dip right now, the mainstream dip.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially with this year coming up again. Check out our 2020 Oscars preview. But what was the movie Under the Silver Lake? Or yeah, that I think that movie, though I think there's some weirdness to it. We were kind of looking at that and saying like, all right, Garfield, he's back from Spider-Man. He's like doing weird shit again. Like let's see where this goes. Right.
Talented actor, just make movies, man. Just do it.
And I guess before that, he was in Hacksaw Ridge and Silence, which Silence I think a little bit less appreciated. Hacksaw Ridge obviously was awards season darling that year, 2016. Yep. But this year you got The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Tick Tick Boom, which we talked about, or we're looking forward to those. But here it comes in mainstream, right? This movie that was directed by Gia Coppola, I believe granddaughter of Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, and niece of Sophia.
And, he's alongside Maya Hawke, who is someone, you just mentioned Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think someone that we really were digging. And, from her, she wasn't Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and also from Stranger Things, and just someone that overall we're like, okay, there's something here. Obviously daughter of Ethan Hawke, but on her own right, it seems to be very
talented. And really looks like her mom at this point, Uma Thurman.
Which what a power couple those two were. But anyways, going back to this movie, I thought mainstream was just way too on the nose for me.
You think?
And it's trying to touch on a lot of different things. It premiered at the Venice Film Festival in September of last year. Coming out now on demand.
Shot in fall in 2019.
So it's been in the can for a while. But it's really like Garfield turning it up to 11 and just being super weird, and everybody else just kind of like around him. And I feel like it's almost like too much for any of its meaning to actually land, in my opinion. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, it's funny because the first 20 minutes, you're not really sure what the plot is. Mm-hmm. I was like, is this going to be some meditative thing? No, actually not at all. Not at all. It's going to rip right into that plot once you get there. And the unfortunate thing is the subtlety is one thing, but it also just kind of felt dated. It's not an intelligent satirization of the internet and Gen Z. It's not that at all. It's what are our surface level what's it boil down to? It's people are on their phones too much. People are photoshopping their Instagrams. That's all you got. That's the take. Okay, cool. But the other thing, the YouTube thing, is a game show on YouTube. That doesn't feel even like it's an understanding of how YouTube works and how little kids watch YouTube at all, to be honest. Watching from towards the beginning, I'm like, they're going over some Jake Paul shit, with the hijinks and the actually honestly in the beginning when Garfield's character, he's more meditative, and he's speaking his thoughts on life. I'm like, it actually kind of reminds me of Logan Paul and how Logan Paul speaks on his podcast, and then he actually transitions into more like gimmicks and gotcha stuff, and it's more reminiscent of early Jake Paul. Mm-hmm. And then Jake Paul himself shows up playing himself later on. I'm like, oh my god, yeah, there's just not an ounce of subtlety, let alone actual awareness of what it's trying to lampoon. So I found it awfully frustrating.
Yeah, even the casting of Johnny Knoxville as the talk show host is pretty much this is the predecessor to all these stunt type, reality YouTube stars. It's not subtle at all. And then you kind of think back to just the way the movie progresses in general, right? And So it follows Frankie, played by Maya Hawke, as she's trying to like break into film or art, kind of vague, and even she isn't really sure as a character what she's trying to do, but she's enamored with Link, who's Andrew Garfield's character, um, and just his weirdness, really. And she posted a video of him speaking on YouTube, gets all these hits. So then her and her coworker Jake kind of start teaming up to figure out how they can channel this guy's weirdness into some sort of stardom. And I actually think that those parts, even though it does kind of flip pretty quickly, I feel like, where like he's like pretty reluctant, and all of a sudden he's like full force like into the like Jake Paul stunt, like
Yeah,
in
and then
someone's
he
backyard, like break.
succumbs to the fame and the
Yeah,
desire for more. Right.
I feel like that happens pretty quick. But I do feel like that's like a fun part of the movie where you're just kind of like along for the ride. And then it pretty, like you said, when it turns into this like game show and Jason Schwartzman shows up and they're
Mhm.
obviously being exploited by this like really grimy agent guy,
Yeah.
that's when it starts to feel like, what, where is this really like going? And it's, I think the beats are pretty easy to tell. You know, it's this rise and fall of this person who gets too much fame too quickly, and no one actually was like listening to what this guy was saying. They just were enjoying the weirdness. But like, I don't know. Again, I feel like I know he embarrasses this girl on this live YouTube
Alexa
game
Demi of
show.
Euphoria fame.
Yeah, shout out her. Which I was like, oh, it's nice to see you. I feel like there's another Euphoria person on this too, but maybe I'm misremembering. But anyways, I just feel like nowadays, if that person was exposed for having edited their pictures, a lot of times it would have been like, yeah, so what? Like everybody knows this. This isn't something that is like some great revelation that
Especially in her
girls.
case, as a
Yeah,
birthmark. It's not like she was making herself not have, like glove handles or something.
right.
It's like, God, it's like in terms of internet sins, this is very low down the list.
Yeah, and especially like at least in 2021 internet culture, I feel like a lot of Gen Z would have been actually very supportive of her and been like, "Yeah, you
Yeah.
look great with the birthmark. You shouldn't do this. Like, you're beautiful either way." Like that's a lot of what I see on TikTok is like people building each other up.
Yeah.
So again, this I think going back to your dated remark, this does feel dated in that sense, and I just was kind of like, it, I think this is getting a little lost in the sauce here at the end.
Right.
Also,
And
the love triangle of it all didn't make any intrigue for me at all. Did that work for you?
oh, no, it didn't. I did like Nat Wolf's line at the bar though, where he was like just roasting the kids for having a shitty fake ID, and he
Yeah.
gives them a drink anyway. I also really like Johnny Knoxville's bit where he's like, "Oh, get off the cross. We need the wood."
Yeah, that
That's
was
a
pretty
great line. But
Um,
I think this would have felt dated even if we got it when it was supposed to come out. Like, this was made in 2019, probably would have come out in early 2020. It would have felt dated then too. It's not like this was a victim of the pandemic. I just think its point of view was ultimately a very, very surface level, and I don't want to say uninformed, but just not in depth.
yeah. Luckily, seems like Garfield has better stuff ahead of him, and I think Maya Hawke does too. So,
Yeah.
shout out to them. Just real quick, what are your thoughts on Jason Schwartzman?
I thought he was effective as like a sleazy agent type. It actually reminded me of the kind of if this was more updated, just in terms of things now. It's like maybe he would have played like the weird like TikTok creator house manager or something.
Yeah,
I could totally see it.
that's true.
This definitely felt more in line with what he can do outside of Wes Anderson role, less so than say Fargo season 4, where he very much fell out of his depth and miscast.
Yeah, this really felt like the correction of his Fargo character to me. You know, like where he instead of him having to be like this like bombastic guy, he could just be like sleazy and grimy. And I thought he was pretty effective. I also just don't know if I really think he's like that great of an actor, but I'm like,
Right.
neither here nor there really. Well, I would say if you really want to check out mainstream, give it a watch. But maybe one that you can skip. But if you do watch, leave your thoughts below. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on SoundCloud.com/NowstalgiaPod.